Turn your mic on. All right, we do have a quorum. Let's go ahead and get started, please. At this time, I'd like to ask everybody to please silence their phones and beepers if they still have them. Good evening. This board is comprised of 7 members. 4 members of the board shall constitute a quorum, and the affirmative vote of 4 members shall be necessary for adoption of a motion. If only 4 members of the board are present, an applicant may request and be entitled to a continuance to the next regularly scheduled meeting of the board. If a matter is continued due to a lack of quorum, the chairperson or secretary of the board may set a special meeting to consider such matter. In the event that 4 votes are not obtained, an applicant may request a continuance or allow the application to proceed to the city commission without a recommendation. Pursuant to resolution number 2021-118, the city of Coral Gables has returned to traditional in-person meetings. Accordingly, any individual wishing to provide sworn testimony shall be present physically in the city commission chambers. However, the Planning and Zoning Board has established the ability for the public to provide comments, non-sworn and without evidentiary value, virtually. Accordingly, only individuals who wish to provide public comment in this format may appear and provide those comments via Zoom. Lobby registration and disclosure. Any person who acts as a lobbyist pursuant to the City of Coral Gables Ordinance Number 2006-11 must register with the city clerk prior to engaging in lobbying activities or presentations before city staff, boards, committees, and/or city commission. A copy of the ordinance is available in the office of the city clerk. Failure to register and provide proof of registration shall prohibit your ability to present to the board. As chair, I now officially call the City of Coral Gables Planning and Zoning Board meeting of April 13, 2022 to order. The time is 6:07. Jill, if you please call the roll.
Robert Behar.
Here.
Alex Costello, Claudia Miro, Luis Revolta, Vinnie Torre,
Here.
Chip Withers,
I'm here.
A.B. Eisenstadt.
Here. Notice regarding ex parte communications. Please be advised that this board is a quasi-judicial board, which requires board members to disclose all ex parte communication and site visits. An ex parte communication is defined as any contact, communication, conversation, correspondence, memorandum, or other written or verbal communication that takes place outside a public hearing between a member of the public and a member of a quasi-judicial board regarding matters to be heard by the board. If anyone made any contact with a board member regarding an issue before the board member must state on the record the existence of the ex parte communication and the party who originated the communication. Also, if a board member conducted a site visit specifically related to the case before the board member must also disclose such visit. In either case, the board member must state on the record whether the ex parte communication and/or site visit will affect the board member's ability to impartially consider the evidence to be presented regarding the matter. The board member shall also state that his or her decision will be based on substantial, competent evidence and testimony presented on the record today. Does any member of the board have such communication and/or site visit to disclose at this time? No?
I do not.
Nobody does. Swearing in, we don't have anybody in chambers, but I will go through this. Everyone who speaks this evening, actually the staff, everyone who speaks this evening must complete the roster on the podium. We ask that you print clearly so for the official records, your name and address will be correct. Now, with the exception of attorneys, all persons physically in the City Commission chambers who will speak on agenda items before us this evening, please rise to be sworn in.
That should be all staff members should rise and be sworn in.
I do.
Thank you. Zoom platform participants. I will ask any person wishing to speak on tonight's agenda item to please open your chat and send a direct message to Jill Menendez stating that you would like to speak before the board and include your full name. Jill will call you when it's your turn. I ask you to be concise for the interest of time. Phone platform participants. After the Zoom platform participants are done, I will ask phone participants to comment on tonight's agenda item. I also ask you to be concise for the interest of time. Next is the approval of minutes. We have two. First is the March 1st, 2022 minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review those?
I make a motion to approve.
Second. Vinnie, second. Any comments? No. Call the roll, please.
Vinnie Torre,
Yes.
Chip Withers,
Yes.
Robert Behar,
Yes.
A.B. Eisenstadt.
Yes. The second minutes are those of March 9th, 2022. Is there a motion?
So move. Second.
Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Chip Withers,
Yes.
Robert Behar,
Yes.
Vinnie Torre,
Yes.
A.B. Eisenstadt.
Yes. The procedure that we'll use tonight is as follows. First, we'll have the identification of agenda item by Mr. Caller, presentation by staff. In this case, we do not have an applicant, so there will not be a presentation by applicant. We'll go ahead and have for public comment, first in chamber, then Zoom platform, and then phone line platform. I'll go ahead and close the public comment. We'll have board discussion. We'll have a motion, discussion, and second of motion if needed, and board's final comments, and then a vote as required. Thank you. The first item, which is item E1, is being deferred
Yes,
tonight.
Mr. Chairman, the city is requesting to defer the item.
Yes.
One question, do we want to defer this specifically to the next meeting for a time certain, or do you avoid advertising, or do you want?
Advertise again.
You're going to advertise again
we
anyway,
need to.
so we're going to defer it and it'll be advertised appropriately.
We'll see when we are ready for that.
Okay, very good.
Thank you. Then, Mr. Caller, would you please read item E2?
Okay, we need a motion
To defer?
Yeah.
Make a motion to defer.
Second. It can be
All
done
in
by
favor?
voice vote.
say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody against? It is deferred. Thank you.
Okay. Item E2, an ordinance of the City Commission of Coral Gables, Florida, providing for a text amendment to the City of Coral Gables official zoning code by amending Article 14 process, Section 14-103.2, membership terms, vacancies, removal, to allow a certain percentage of the Board of Architects members to not be residents or have their principal place of business in the City of Coral Gables, Florida, providing for severability, repealer, codification, and effective date. Item E2, public hearing.
Thank you. Mr. Trias?
Mr. Chairman, you had a chance to discuss this last time. It's the same concept. The only change is that there was a preference to have 50% or less. In other words, no less than 50%, as opposed to no less than 5, which was the language prior to that. So staff is recommending approval.
Wait, I'm sorry, I lost it. No less than 50%? You mean it has to be more than 50%?
It says that no less than 50% of the members
Have to
to
be,
be
shall be residents. So,
Or have office in the gate.
yes, or
okay, so
have
how many members on the board are there?
at least 7. There could be more. So that's the subtlety.
50% is 3.5.
Yes.
Is that,
It
okay,
would be 4.
4? Why don't we just, okay.
But however,
Okay, no, I understand.
there could be more because the way that the ordinance is written, there could be more members appointed, maybe 10 or 12 at some point. So that's why the 50% made sense.
So, Robert, you've been on the board, so I guess before they were asking for 5 minimal, now it's 4, let's pretend. That means, let's pretend, right now, 3 could be non-residents.
Correct.
That, how do you see?
I think it's a great, it gives the opportunity, opens it up to have more opportunities. I think it's like I mentioned last time, I think this is a good thing for the city and for the Board of Architects.
How about the chairperson? Should that be a Gables resident? Do we care about that?
Chip, I don't think so. I think that the best qualified person should be the chair. With the time, I'm not a believer that just because you live in the Gables, you're gonna do the right job anyway. So, to me, the best qualified person to become
Well, I'm
the
more
chair.
concerned about the optics of residents thinking that the board has now been hijacked by non-Gables architects. That's my,
But I mean, I don't see it that way. I would see it, I think this is a good opportunity to bring other good qualified architects to serve in the city. And you don't have to be a resident. You don't have to have your primary business in the Gables. And I think that could be for us, same thing that's, it is mandatory, for example, that you have to be registered. Well, I know a lot of great, talented professionals that are not registered, but they cannot serve on the board. That's a different conversation. But just because you don't live here doesn't mean that you cannot be an asset to the Board of Architects.
so is it Dade County or is it Broward, Palm Beach? Is it limited to Dade or does that matter to you?
To me, listen, I'm gonna give you an example. If we could get, an architect, Robert Stern, that will
He's
come-
knocking at the door trying to join
to
us,
come
yes.
let's say that, he wants to participate in the Gables because he resides in South Florida, on the winter times, and he wants to serve on the board. I think that could be an asset. So to me, I don't want to limit to specifically. What do you think,
But
Mr. Chief?
this is a weekly board. It meets for 4 hours every week. We don't have that many.
I understand. Listen, as I said the last time, I have no opinion on this, and I'm deferring totally to someone
I
that.
think the concern that I heard Chip say is specifically on one position, which would be the chair for the optics.
Yeah.
And in a way, to me, that kind of makes sense. But I'm open either way.
We could forward those comments to the commission and see what they.
Yeah, I
what
mean,
they
listen,
feel.
Just as a comment, and to be clear, there doesn't have to be 50% resident architects sitting at a time. It's just the makeup of the board that
Yes,
we're
sir.
determining. I just want to
Yes,
be
sir.
clear on that.
And just to follow, how does the chairman get elected to that work?
Well, a vote.
By the other board
at
member.
yeah.
So that's the check right there, I guess, in a way.
I mean, the chairperson could be, and will stay. It's not a,
Yeah, I wouldn't overthink it. I think it's a good idea to open it up. It gives us a chance to appoint, it gives the city manager a chance to appoint other people.
and I think that, to me, that's a fundamental reason that this is a good, because it really is gonna open up to a lot more.
Having heard the discussion, I'll make a motion for approval.
I'll second it.
We have a motion to approve. We have a second. As recommended.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep. Any discussion? No, call the roll, please.
Robert Behar,
Yes.
Vinnie Torre,
Yes.
Chip Withers,
Yes.
Baby Eisenstadt.
Yes. Thank you. The next item, E3.
Item E3, an ordinance of the City Commission of Coral Gables, Florida, providing for a text amendment to the City of Coral Gables official zoning code by amending Article 14 Process, Section 14-204, transfer of development rights, TDRs, to allow the City Commission to designate a TDR receiving site when located in a planned area development, PAD, and zone MX2 or MX3, providing for severability, repealer, codification, and effective date. Item E3, public hearing. Just to check on item E2, I don't think there was anybody on Zoom or.
Oh, yeah, I did
Did
not
we-
ask.
we did
Thank
not
you for bringing
ask.
that up, and I did
And
not
maybe
lose.
before we move on, we just want to double check
Thank you.
on that.
Jill, did we have anybody on Zoom platform that wanted to speak on item E2?
No, no request to speak.
Okay,
No request.
just let the record reflect that.
Correct. I apologize
Okay,
to the board.
item E3, public hearing.
So, Mr. Chairman, this is exactly what the city attorney said. It's just one sentence that adds PAD as long as it's zone MX2 or MX3, meaning the mixed use only, as a receiving site for TDRs. That's all it is. It's one more option for the city.
I don't have any comments. If not, I'll make a motion to approve.
Let me just, is there anybody from the public, Jill, on this item?
No.
No? Go ahead, Robert, I'm sorry.
If there's no, I don't have any comments on this. If there's nobody from the board, I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'm not against it, I just want to make sure I understand it. This is changing the receiving sites to have more available receiving
Yes.
sites? And before, it was only the CBD that could
This-
receive it?
And a few other places like the Ponce de Leon
So now,
corridor.
for example, you're outside of CBD, you can still receive TDRs if the commission approves,
As long as it's MX2 or MX3.
with commission approval.
Yes.
And of course, it needs to be a PAD.
Understood.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second. Any comments? Chip?
No.
No? Call the roll, please.
Vinnie Torre,
Yes.
Chip Withers,
Yes.
Robert Behar,
Yes.
Baby Eisenstadt.
Yes. Item E4.
Item E4, an ordinance of the City Commission of Coral Gables, Florida, providing for a text amendment to the City of Coral Gables official zoning code by striking Appendix E, Business Improvement Overlay District, Section E1, Business Improvement Overlay District, BIOD, subsection B1D, temporary windows, signs, wraps, and creating Article 11 signs, Section 11-101, purpose and applicability, subsection C9, temporary window wraps to uniformly regulate temporary window wraps within the city, providing for severability, repealer, codification, and effective date. Item E4, public hearing.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, what this amendment does is that it moves the regulation to the sign section of the code, the regulation of temporary wraps, which, as you know, is what people do when they're doing construction, and enhances the aesthetics of the wraps. Belkis has a presentation, and she can explain it.
Right. Good evening, everyone. Belkis Perez, the Economic Assistant Director of the Economic Development Department. If you could pull up the, thank you so much. So we just wanted to give you a visual of the changes that are happening in the code. So this is what we're seeing in the city. This is the type of wrap. Sometimes there is white paper, there's brown paper, and sometimes even trash bags. This is another example of what we're seeing in the city. The designs are very disjointed, as you can see, and so we're questioning what exactly is part of the zoning code and what is adequate to achieve the aesthetic look that we're going for. In the commercial district, especially with our newly remodeled streetscape area. So we found language, as Mr. Trias was saying, that we found language in the city code and we found language in the zoning code. So it made it a little bit difficult for a business owner or a property owner to go and really understand what they were allowed to do. So we're consolidating the language and putting it all in the zoning code, and it's providing a uniform and standard that can be applied across the board. And that what is important to note here is that we're not regulating the wording, we're just regulating the design and the aesthetic look. So as such, we created basically a style guide to help our businesses and our property owners. We started off with a color palette that is currently the secondary color palette for the city of Coral Gables. We have, obviously everyone knows, the beige, green, and orange. This is the secondary palette. And then we created 3 additional palettes: a cool palette, warm palette, and green palette. We don't want to be overly prescriptive, so this is going to be a living document. This is just a draft. But we wanted to give them a visual guide of what we expected. So aside from those colors, there will be backgrounds that they can pick from. Some examples of the backgrounds could be solid, as you see, textured, watermarked. Some would contain floral and tropical foliage. So those are just some of the options that you see there. Anything in that tone or hue will be acceptable as well. And then these are just some examples. We wanted to mock them up to see, so you could see what they would look like. Here we have a textured watermark tiled effect with a solid color that complements it, and then a place where the logo would be placed for either a for lease sign or for a coming soon sign. Again, the same thing here. This is more of a vine effect with a different color palette, and then the same thing as far as where you place the logo. Here again, this would be a for lease sign solid panel. So this is really something that see if it comes up. This is really a great alternative for our property owners. They don't have to think about it. They can just pick a color from the color palette and put their for lease sign up there as well. And maybe they're trying to get their PowerPoint up again.
Don't you think, I mean, while we wait for that, that perhaps we should allow to show a little bit larger what's coming, so that people are, because from what I saw there is a small, like, sign what's coming. If there's a new business that's looking to come in, maybe something a little bit larger, so people become more aware of that.
I think she's going to speak up. I think what they're trying to do is one of these that you don't have to go around and getting a lot of approvals, that they're just basically off the shelf. Here we go, we can do it without, if you just want to go through pick off the shelf and go for it. The ones that you're talking about require a process of approval.
No, but it may be as simple as that, okay, off the shelf, I picked that, but it gives me a little bit more opportunity.
Of lettering, so that allows a significant.
25% of your.
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right.
That's the language.
That's in what you're proposing.
Yes.
Okay.
It was 50%. We reduced it to 25 because it was
and
very large.
Horizontal lettering.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is in my view, the most important aesthetic consideration as far as the lettering.
Okay.
And what happens to the people that are existing with the way that they have wrapped?
Well, these are temporary wraps, and sometimes they have been cited because they didn't go through our prior process. Our prior process was a little bit informal, but as Belkis explained, there were rules in different places, and some of them applied to the downtown, some of them applied somewhere else, and most people didn't follow, right? Most people will simply put up whatever just because they didn't know. So the challenge is that you don't want to have code enforcement action constantly over something that is just temporary. And this was a way to come up with a more user-friendly approach of saying, look, the city does want to have some uniformity and some process. So I think it's a good idea. It applies all throughout the city as opposed to only the downtown, the way that it's written now, because now it's in the zoning code, in the sign section, so it applies throughout.
Now that I see the little bit preview of the rest.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's not working properly, but we gave some examples. If someone can go to the next slide, I'm trying to do it myself, but the next slide is an example of something that is already up. This is Le Artisan. It's a bakery. It has a coming soon sign with a solid background, and then it took a complementary floral pattern as well. And then another one is, so this is an example of what we like and what we're trying to mimic across the city. Viña is another one. As you can see, they used a watermark feature on the right-hand side, and it looks great. So there is some flexibility. However, if you don't pick from the template and you're 180 days from opening your business, you can have a custom wrap. Everyone has their brand guidelines. Our businesses could have brand guidelines of their own. So we are allowing that to happen. There's an administrative aesthetic review process, but it just needs to be graphically consistent with the style guide and in that same spirit, and have a muted color palette is what we're encouraging. So you can still have your brand right before those 6 months before you open.
But that's the two last examples that you showed us are over 25%. That would be allowed?
No,
For example, this is over 25%.
that is over 25%
That one's
25%
over
of the
25%.
area, or the area
Of the area.
Yeah, of the
of the
area.
entire
Of the,
wrap area.
Of the entire area, so it's not only the 25% of the width.
See, I mean, I see this and I like it. I don't have a problem with this.
Exactly.
It's very tastefully done and he advertised.
but just so I can understand, when you say of the area of each, let's say one glass is one area and 25% of that glass?
Says
or you would-
25% of the wrap area, period. So
Entire area,
the entire area.
All three of those panels.
right.
So
But
in this case, this is not all 3 panels. I mean, this is at least 5 panels. I just cropped it so you can get a sense of what the visuals would look like.
because to me, this looks, only because I like it, there's nothing wrong with it. But the way I see it written at the bottom in two-tone, I would think that it's more than 25%, and yet this looks great.
There could be some judgment in the sense that if it looks great like this and it's clearly not, then, it's a temporary wrap, so
Can I interject?
yes.
Before we continue, if we could go ahead and notice that Claudia went ahead and joined us. We could mark that for the record. Go ahead, please.
Also, the wrap where you're saying that large wording in watermark feature, that is considered a texture. That is part of the background. We won't consider that part of the sign, the amount of signage.
Or not, depending how the design is designed. So in this case, yes, that's okay, but if they were to do it in a way that is more clearly distinct from the background, then it would be different.
And you went from 50% to 25%.
Yes.
Yeah. And then you could have the name, the logo, contact information, limited information. So it's not only, you're not advertising the products or anything like
I mean,
that.
I don't want to see something that is, overly outrageous, but if we're going to try to get the new business to be exposed, I want to give them the most opportunity that they could possibly have to be successful when they come in. Nothing better is, they're coming, I want to go. And so.
The best way to success, I think, is to have an overall strategy that shows quality and shows the branding of the city. And I think that's what we're trying to achieve.
What I do like here is that you don't have that old, there was a time that we had the same background, and you will see it everywhere. I like this because it gives you more of a identity that could be associated with the businesses.
So it would be subjective then. I mean, the reason I'm asking these questions, because looking at this, what's up there right now, you know, I don't know if that's a logo that would be with the dishes and so forth, but it looks great. I'm not saying it doesn't. I just don't want to have conflicts come up because of it, and somebody says, well, she doesn't like my design, or he likes my design, or it looks good.
The way the process is now is that they ask me to take a look at it. Every time I said change it, they have changed it. We never had any conflict.
I want to clarify what you're trying to do. So I appreciate this is important because there's a lot of frustration by tenants that the process is Core Gables sort of style, and we have to go through these things. So, because I was with the bid for a long time, so this is something I dealt with quite a bit. You're saying these types of things, as long as they follow the color palette and have the 25%, that's pre-approved. Is that correct?
And the information, the limited
Correct.
information.
So if I do that and I have to stick within the color palette, I can't do, for example, purple plates. That would not be acceptable, or black plates. In other words, there could
There
be
has to
things
be-
that just
right.
don't look great, but somebody decided to do it, and you're not gonna be able to say yea or nay, because they followed the colors. So is there a way to have something so simplistic that says the people that don't really care that much? Some of these landlords are not trying to bring in tenants, they just want to follow the rules. The rules that you have to provide a wrap, they say, whatever, put whatever, we don't care. They don't care, really, they don't. So the answer would be just put one of those solid colors and put for lease. That would be simple, that would be great.
Right.
When it gets complicated is when you have tenants that said it's already pre-approved, and then there's still some gray matter to the issue. So is it just put an application, put the picture, and it goes through the permit process? Does not go back to any particular department? Is it, how is it just approved? By what way?
I
Zoning
believe
approves it?
it's gonna stay the same way it is when it's a custom wrap, that it goes through the Economic
But not
Development
custom.
Department and then the design review
I'm just
official.
trying to figure out what is not a custom design.
A custom design is something that, you can put up when you're 180 days before opening.
But go back to that.
The Bina one, which is one that has
Yeah, they
large
have the
letters.
plates, that
Large
one.
letter, or that one.
Okay, let's say that one. Is
That
that a
is-
custom?
That is a custom, that can be a custom design because it is a contrast. There is contrast there. So it can be. It doesn't look like the rest of
By the way,
the,
you don't need a permit if it's,
you don't need a permit regardless.
so you simply put it up.
That's what I'm trying to get
Yeah.
to. Some people say, look, go to the store, or these three people do it, call them and get one to help you, and that's it. They should know what's going on.
Yeah,
That would be ideal.
that's ideal. So we'll see how that works. And right now, the problem is people are doing it anyway, basically without any review. And most of the time that I get to see it is after the fact. You know, I get to see things that are already up. So we're trying to see if we can make it easier to
So
have some guidance.
if you put for lease in a custom wrap, do you still allow to put up a real estate sign?
Yes, those are separate signs.
Why? I'm just curious if, I mean, it just would,
Because you need to know who's leasing that space.
I mean, lieu of, I'm just asking, I mean, I'm not,
What would you like?
Evaluating.
Would you like to have a
well,
different?
I don't know, I'm just, if you can put for lease and you have a phone number, I'm assuming you can put the company name that's leasing it?
Yes.
Is there a need then to duplicate it with a sign? It just looks like it clutters it up to me, if you're
Okay.
trying to clean it up.
We may want to think about that as a way to limit the proliferation of signs, yeah.
And when can they take the wrap down?
They take it down after opening, so they've got 72 hours after they open to remove the wraps.
So if I'm doing some really cool interiors and I'm just waiting for a few things and I'm 3 weeks out, 4 weeks out, why
keep
wouldn't
it
we
up.
want them to open it up and let them
No,
people
you
see?
can keep it, you can keep the wraps up.
No, but
no.
the question is, can you take it off before?
Yeah, can I take it off before, instead of 2 days before opening? I mean, I'm just thinking if you're trying to build a vibe for a restaurant.
Absolutely. You can, as long as no construction is being seen, right, Ramon?
Yes.
So what's the
In
policy on that?
construction.
The policy is that no construction is going on. However, I I haven't seen a practical problem with any of these issues. Maybe I just haven't seen it, but the fact of the matter, people generally, I think, follow the rules. And if they don't, code enforcement takes care of that, so.
Well, I know, but if instead of saying 2 days before you open the door to the public, you have to keep it under wrap, I mean,
So,
there might be some
You
flexibility
don't, you
there.
don't have to. If you're ready to go, you can remove the wraps.
I mean, it just, the only thing that it says is temporary window wraps must be removed within 72 hours of business opening.
Right.
In other words, you open your business, you must remove them.
But you can open it, you can unwrap it before then if you want.
Yes, as long as,
I'm not concerned about the 72 hours
Right.
because the moment that you get a CO, you want people in, you want to have it beforehand. So that's not going to be, what I think Chip's, comments is
can
a
you do
valid.
it earlier?
I want to do it so people start seeing, wow, that looks nice, looks cool. I want to come there. And, as long as there's no construction going on, you're allowed to do that, right?
We could add a sentence that makes that
I don't
clear.
know, I'm just trying to help the people that are opening.
Wait, the only thing that concerns me, go to the one that says Vina, for just example.
When it says what?
The Vina wine
Right.
bar. So you have this 25% lettering that I think could get tricky, like that thing on the bottom.
That's why I was asking.
That's a lot of
how that-
flexibility that could go and not be just standard off the shelf, go for it. That's sort of getting into the weeds. I don't know if you restrict it to smaller, so that there's a color, there's those palettes, and then the signs don't get to be designed over a course of something that large. I'm just trying to not,
But that
Let
looks,
it go right.
to me, that looks good.
yeah, but somebody came up with a beautiful design. What happens if that,
If Vinny did it or something.
yeah, I mean, you could do something, I'm getting 25% of that thing to do a sign, so I'm still writing a lot.
Claudia?
I'm just bringing
I was
it
gonna
up.
say that.
I'm just bringing it up. I'm just saying is if you want it to be automatic, here guys, just go for it, simple enough. Does that give you too much latitude to create a sign that 25% could go really awry there? If you took the bottom one away, all the other ones will work probably easy enough. Right? No problem. Those are, hey. But when you start adding stuff that big, I think that's where you could get into some trouble. So that would have been.
I think you're right, and I think that should be a case-by-case basis, and we do have some ability
That's
to.
good.
to
That's
review
within
it.
the 25% requirement.
Right, but that's a nicely done sign. Again, this is where you get so
Exactly.
much flexibility that somebody could say, well, I was doing my 25%, but.
For example,
looked like the kid did it."
if you did black letters vertically saying Viña, that would be a problem, right? So at that point, yeah.
Or I think even, I was going to agree with you, if you use like graffiti style lettering, now it's an eyesore.
You're right, you're right.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to note that Claudia came in after it started, but she's welcome to participate. You recall that at the previous meeting, I believe it was Lewis came in late, and it was a quasi-judicial item, and he couldn't participate. But this is purely legislative. So the fact that a board member is not here from the beginning is not a problem. So I just want to point that out for future reference.
Thank you.
In under the wire, just in time.
No, not only that. Only one item before we adjourn.
The funnest item all year.
Go ahead, Counselor.
It is.
That was all I wanted to say, was I
Thank you,
agree
thank
with Vinny's comment. I think that you kind of get into the weeds with the size of that lettering. If you're going to do it on a case-by-case basis, and I'm okay with it, but, let's say you get, like I said, graffiti lettering or something else that's a little bit more risque, then it might start looking like a blighted area or like, the artistic concept. They can run away with that a little bit and get out of control.
Believe me,
point.
I understand.
That's why the question was, is it subjective?
Things are subjective and zoning is subjective, believe it or not. And people think that zoning is magical in terms of the way, believe me, you should see what we get to.
But let me just say this about signs. I think the concept here is they're trying to be as objective as possible by having a palette, by having a general design, and still have the option if somebody wants to come in to seek a full review, they can, but the concept here is to have a process by which, if you follow the palette, you have a reasonably objective way of approving it.
Here's what, from my experience, the people that are doing the simple, quickly get in and out are not trying to bring in the fancy restaurants. They're just trying to complete or abide by the rules. So we need to put something up, and they'll put something. Doesn't need to get complicated. That's what you're trying to do. Here, for those people that don't need to be complicated, here's the non-complicated. If you got a fancy restaurant, you got a fancy store, you hire graphic artists to do your design. So once it gets to that sophisticated level, then you go through the design process anyway. So what you're trying to appease is the simple landlord that just wants to put a for lease sign, or somebody who says, you know what, I'm a cheapskate or whatever, I just want to put something. So it's for that sort of faster route that you need to allow this to go forward, and not for the more,
Let me give you a scenario. You have a new modern restaurant that's opening up. They don't need to come to you to get a permit or an approval. So they'll go ahead and they'll spend money on a designer, as you say. They'll go ahead and put together the logo and the whole thing. Then when it's put up, City of Coral Gables says, wait, we don't like that. How do you treat that situation?
If they
They
follow
don't
the
come to you
guidelines.
first and say, is this okay to do, so we don't go through and spend X amount of dollars?
And we do that now. Those that do ask questions, we do run them through the process and we give them some guidance.
Okay.
The problem is that, as Ramon was saying, many times we just find out about the wraps after the fact.
By code
By
enforcement?
code enforcement, or we see it up, we get calls. And so in this case, we're giving people a template so, they don't have to take it down. There's many times that they do vertical lettering, and that's really not allowed. So they'll have to go through that process again. Here, we're giving them distinct guidelines for that.
Okay, and I'll go back to the question asked before, which would be, for example, where you saw the one restaurant or something that had all the individual people and so forth. That's already up. Are you going to go to them and tell them, you got to take this down because it's not within the color palettes?
No,
Okay,
that stays up until, I believe those will be grandfathered in.
okay, yeah, thank you.
So basically, this gives us more tools to do a better job,
Okay.
and hopefully you agree.
So I have one question on the 25% rule. So if it's a flat surface,
Yes.
the 25% is measured. So if it's one of these where there's windows on either side and you walk in, do you measure the whole wrap of the window, the
Yes.
whole?
The whole area, it may not be flat, yes.
I understand. So if someone has 300 square feet of glass and 200 square feet of it is facing the sidewalk, can they put as much as the 25% lettering on facing the sidewalk and not worry about spreading it throughout the entire?
If it's done
Yeah.
elegantly and nicely, yeah, sure.
Okay.
my point is, I will defer to you, what you guys would want. I have concerns about the 25. But again, if you guys think that's what you want, I have concerns that gives some amplitude here for people to do things that looks terrible. Or is that word really something we want to have exposed, some huge words? I don't know that you need to do that for that simplistic approach. Something's coming, here's a name. You get to have these sort of larger squares. I wouldn't do it as a continual 3 panes of glass make up a 25%. And I'm taking over 3 panes of glass to create this large, now it's a large sign. It gives me some pause that some people will do something that you will not like. But again, I
think
defer to you guys.
that's going to happen. Some people are going to do things we don't like, and that's why we have a chance to talk to them. And in my experience, which probably am as experienced as most people on this issue, it's been a very positive process. I mean, I haven't had
Can those letters be 2 feet high?
2 feet high
25%, but my letter is 2 feet high.
and really skinny. You mean?
Correct.
And the ones
And
that I
you can't
don't
say
like,
no because
well, I
it's
mean,
approved.
we'll
Again,
see.
I just think there's a lot of latitude for that. But
So,
keep
so
going.
the basic issue is, I think that if we have some graphics attached, which I think that's the direction that the economic development staff is going, then people can say, oh, okay, this is what we mean, and then follow that. I think that's the easiest way to do it. If it doesn't work, then we can improve.
We'll come back.
We can
and
come
revisit.
back.
Jill, do we have anybody from the public on this item?
No.
No, we don't. Anybody like to make a motion?
I'll move it.
Chip, Made the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any second? Any comments? No. Call the roll, please.
Chip Withers,
Yes.
Robert Behar,
Yes.
Claudia Miro,
Yes.
Vinnie Torres,
Yes.
A.B. Eisenstadt.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Great job.
And this
Excited
is the
about
last item.
No more
Let
items, sir.
Claudia make the motion to adjourn.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
Motion.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations,
Everybody in favor,
Mr.
say aye.
Chairman.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you for coming.
You brought it in under 6 o'clock.
And this item took forever.